Okay. Barry's asking, is just inquiring amongst members as to what methods of remote dowsing are used, such as maps, places, objects, and people. Do you want to have a chat about that, Barry?
Yes, I've been doing remote dowsing mainly for minerals and on a map. And say, for instance, a map of Western Australia, which is quite a large state, and I'll focus on what I'm looking for, in what form, and then I break the map of the state up in quadrants, and then go to a quarter of the broken up map, and then break that up again. And I keep on going down in these quadrants until I get a location of maybe end up a square mile on the map, and then I would go to the location and do it with the pendulum and dowse once I get that location. This is for minerals. With other things like ley lines, I've done some dowsing of orchards to find out where the problems are, and I've just drawn a mud map basically on a bit of paper before I get there, and then I'll have a fair idea before I get there at the property where these lines are and the number of them and the intensity. I found that to be fairly good, but once I like to do it on the site as well. But I was just wondering what members might do, and people. Well, I've used a bit like Reiki, where you get a cushion or a doll and place it on your lap and relate it to a person you're transferring the energy to at a different location, and douse the pillow, say, or a doll to find problems with that entity. So, but I'll give it to you guys to see what you do or how you do things.
Thanks, Barry.
Could I just say that I do almost all my dowsing work remotely? 95% I do remotely, and it's only if I chance upon somebody in real life that asks for something found out that I'll do it. It's somebody standing there. So I find once you get used to using maps, even, ordnance survey maps, back of a beer map match, anything like that is fine. Using somebody as a body double for the person they're concerned about is fine. Using a little stick man drawing is fine, and then going through the systems. Because I learned to remote dowse very early on, because I was taught to dowse by Paul Lim, and he's a great proponent of remote dowsing. I've never done it any other way. So for me, I can't really say anything useful because that's just how I do it. So I'll let other folks say what they do.
Can I just ask a couple of questions?
Yep.
So learning to remote dowse, Mary, is that any different to learning to dowse?
Well, I think the reason I learnt to remote dowse is I learnt to dowse in a village hall rather than doing it outside. I think we went outside a couple of times when we were learning to identify known targets, and then we went straight up the levels from identifying known findable targets to findable unknown targets to right up to esoteric levels really quickly. because we weren't relying on having the visible target. We had to believe the dowsing, if you know what I mean. So it's just the way that Paul Lim teaches. I know some dowsers, they spend ages, with, bottles of water hidden and, bits of jewellery under carpets and all sorts. And that's great. But if that's the only way you do douse, you'll never move above dowsing for water pipes and that sort of thing. And that's absolutely fine. But, I was just as interested in all the other stuff too. And so I never questioned remote dowsing at all. It was just how I did it.
And I think that's a really good point you make, not questioning it, because it's our minds that can get in the way of that. So trusting the dowsing response and trusting in your dowsing becomes really, really important. And anybody can remote dowse. We just have to open our minds up to the possibility of it being possible to do that and not questioning it. The minute we open the door to doubt, then we start to bring in our own problems to it. But if we don't go there, then that ability to dowse with a pendulum on a remote target, be it a person or a map or a horse or a place, it doesn't make any difference whether it's remote or whether it's something that you're doing with the individual in front of you. And that's what I've come to learn over the last 4 or 5 years, 8 years perhaps. I've been remote dowsing. As far as Barry goes, Barry, have you had any of your validation? Have you had any of your results validated? And when you've gone and visited these, you said you got it down to maybe a mile square part on a map, and you've then gone and subsequently visited these places. Have you validated what you dowse remotely as to what you find at the place?
I'll have to wait till about June to answer that question, because I'm going to go gold prospecting when the weather gets a bit cooler, and I'll spend about a month in it. I'm going to go to gold areas where there's known gold deposits, and I've got locations already mapped out. So I'll take a metal detector and the dowsing and my pendulum, but I'll be able to report later in the year as to whether I'm right. So.
Can I send you my bank account details, Barry?
Well, I figure that there's gold in Australia. There's gold everywhere, but there are locations which are really untouched, and but there's a lot of country out there that, for instance, I drove 1,000 k yesterday from Brisbane to Mackay, and I'm in Mackay at the moment. So, and getting up at 4 a.m. It was 5 a.m. last time. But anyway, yeah, I'll follow up on that in the next few months and let you know how things go. But I'm looking at a few different aspects, and gold is one of them. But other things I'm going to try to locate to prove whether, well, I know it'll work. So
brilliant. I for one am very excited at the prospects of that. So thanks very much, and I look forward to you coming on again.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a few people put their hand up. Chris Tom, you had your hand up?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I've found that Google Earth is an exceptionally valuable resource for dowsing, remote dowsing, and it's really great because you can start on a very wide area and then zoom in to where you want to focus. That's the only comments I wanted to make, and I was pleased to see people like Sue putting the thumb up. Other people have obviously latched onto that in a big way.
Okay, next, Sue Mann.
Yes, well, for me, the only difference between dowsing in the real, well, what's in front of you, and map dowsing, or dowsing a view in front of you, however near or far, because for example, your washing line for the moisture level, all of this, you just have to tune in with the subject. You have to, sorry, connect is a good word, and I think that's the word Peter Taylor uses. You just have to connect, and then you're there, because there's no gap, because it's just the energy. You're just there once you've connected, and it's amazing. And yes, Google Earth is pretty good, but I when I do that and go in to a larger scale, then every time I have to reconnect, just like to make that point, because otherwise you can get discrepancies, and I have had it verified as well. So yeah, it's brilliant.
Thank you very much. And next to Lynn Osborne.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. I don't do map dowsing very often, but I do tune in remotely to at least half of my clients. So I douse the person. So and I don't always have their witness, like a signature or their hair or anything. So what I do is use their date and place of birth, and I connect with the time and the date and the place that they actually come on the planet. So if I'm dowsing, once I've connected to their energies coming here, and then I douse that way. So it could be anywhere in the world. Yeah. So I use remote dowsing a lot.
And that's instantly, is it?
Pardon? Instantly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, when I get my confirmation, with my pendulum, I haven't got one here at the moment, that I'm tuned in, I get a yep. And so, yeah, it's a minute or so, or less than that. It's so I separate them from any other being on the planet by their name, date, place of birth, and I sort of focus, and then they're there. Okay. That's how I do it if I don't have, a hair sample or anything like that, even if they're not with me. Yeah. So yeah, quite easy.
And then, thank you, Lynn. And Martin is next on the list.
Yeah. Hi, Richard. My experiences were 30 years ago when I was trained by a chap in dowsing. He said, well, he wanted to look at my house, just draw the plan on a piece of paper, a rectangle, and show me where the front door is. And he just went around and could tell me any energies around the house, just looking at a piece of paper. He was relating it through that. Now, I don't do much map dowsing, but I do relate to the last lady, Lynn, when she picking up on people is quite easy generally. And the chap before was talking about the Google Earth or Google Maps. I do use that sometimes. And recently, a healer I know asked me to confirm something about one of his clients, but he didn't want to give any information away other than a name and nothing else. So I dowsed where this person was for confirmation, and I got a very exact point in Nigeria. And went back to him and said, well, does this relate? And he said, oh, no, not at all. I went back to the same name and I dismissed that person, and I looked for the next one of that name, which was the one, and I asked the question better next time, that it was the one this man knew. And I got a very exact address in a city nearby, asked him, he said, yes, bang on. So you can do it through Google, and I got my feedback that way, but it's also easy to get it wrong, is what I'm saying, if you haven't made the right contact in the first place. That's my experience. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Martin. That's great. Thank you. And the next one, David.
Yeah, it was my son's speciality, remotely filling in maps with energy lines, but unfortunately he doesn't do that anymore. He's more into building houses and making a fortune. But my experience of map dowsing has been absolutely proven. When I have gone to visit people in different countries, just sat in my chair, and it's like an instance, and it has been a full-on immersive experience, feeling their emotions, their pain, and not to be recommended sometimes. But what I'd like to mention really is one slightly different variation on map dowsing is rather than working with grids, if you hold the question in your head of what you want to find, and then just set your pendulum going into neutral, well, backwards and forwards, or just set it moving. But it's a really subtle experience. If you ask for a point where you will find some oil or gold or whatever it is, you'll actually find the pendulum can take your hand across the map. It's really subtle, but it'll take you there. It's like if you're using a rod and you just ask for a direction with your rod. Say, I want to find the loos, and it'll take you, to the public loos type of thing. Or you've lost someone on a campsite, and it'll take you to a tent that you didn't possibly think that they could be in, and you knock on the tent and there they are. What they're up to, of course, is a completely different matter, but so it's very similar to that. It's just instead of using a rod, you're using a pendulum, and it'll take you, and then it'll give you a little circle, and it'll stop when you're above what you're looking for. Different technique to try.
Mm.
Yeah, clear as mud. Got that?
Yeah, can I speak?
Yes, go ahead.
When I located my student within 1 kilometer square in Mexico City, the thing was I first of all had to discount all the other occurrences where I had her energy, because it was somewhere that she had lived all her life. So obviously, yes, the preparation, like Martin was saying, is the questions, of course. And, you just have to keep at it. That's it, really. Although I do think that there's two approaches. There's the ruler approach. There's the gritty approach, or perhaps gritty people, maybe just gritty approach. And then there's the explorer approach, where you're searching. And like David said, it's a magnetic pull. It feels like it's magnetic. And it actually you can feel it stops you going the other way as well. It's like there's something there stopping you.
It's a strange feeling, isn't it? So it's it's really subtle, but it's definitely taking your hand across.
Yeah.
You have to try it and experience it to quite understand it. If you start on something that you kind of know is there, just see if you get that feeling.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. And then expand out to things that you don't know where they are.
It's reassuring though, because you think, oh yes, the pull, and then you have it again, and oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. It's funny how it's stronger on a map. I find it stronger on a map than with a rod, thinking about it.
Well, you haven't got hissing Sid, have you? That's the trouble.
No.
No, well, there you go. Oh, sorry, to those of you that don't know hissing Sid, this is hissing Sid.
Oh,
It's a dowsing rod. Yes.
Can you bring those with you, David? All your rods?
All of them?
Well, a good selection.
You got different hissings.
No, I've only got a few.
Let's have another look at hissing Sid. I haven't seen him before.
Oh yeah, for Lynn. Sorry.
It's a serpent, but it's an upside down rod, so it works that way.
Oh, wow. Never seen one of those.
No, he's unique. That's a different type. Oh, couple of crystals, quartz crystals on it.
Lynn, do you explore queries from people's former lives? Well, from beings' former lives that are now present as a certain identity? Because you were saying you focus on them the moment they arrive.
Yeah, if
Does that come up?
yeah, it does. So because I do the health or the mind or the emotional stuff, if what they're presenting with now, when I think of former lives, I also think they're potentially happening now in another dimension. So if it supports them to know it's either them in another life or another dimension or their ancestors. So yes, we can trace it back if that's appropriate. Yeah. 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 So any timeline, I suppose, you can think of, and that could go in the future as well.
And you do that, but just by thoughts. You don't have any other prop, like you said you don't have a photo. You have the or you just follow the line in from them. I suppose that's.
I do, yeah. I'm in touch with their whole energy field, so that could be anywhere in the universe or beyond. Does that make sense? So
yeah.
I suppose it's like as good as the questions I can ask or think of asking.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't, and sometimes I don't see it that it's got a time. It's just there.
Yeah.
Unless they need to know it's a time. Because what I've also found, if someone's got a trauma that they are disassociated from, sometimes I find that I need to tell them it wasn't related to them, but it was an ancestor. Might get a bit complicated.
Yeah, true.
Because it helps them to detach from it, but that can still be changed.
Okay.
So I just see them as a whole field. It doesn't matter time. But it depends what the person can cope with to know. And their system will tell me what they can cope with. Because I've got some quite bizarre thoughts, and I think, well, if they need to know this is a past life, or if they need to know they've inherited this from their great grandmother or grandfather, then that's the question or information I'll get. That makes sense.
Okay. I've got a point, but I don't. Oh, Martin.
Go on, ask me the question. You look like you've got another question.
It's not. I've got no end of questions, but it's not actually. It's going back to map dowsing. It sounds a bit loony to people not from this Zoom. Whether anybody else has had this experience when they've been map dowsing, I don't know, perhaps a route or a journey of this is a human in this case, whether they also perceive the subject as a tiny dot, but you can see the complete person and you see a different sort of like a worldview of it as well. This has only started happening recently.
Did you get this from Harry Potter and the Marauder's Map?
No, I haven't seen it. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Perhaps I should. Do you think I should have a look?
Well, it's come from somewhere, and the map is of Hogwarts.
Me. It's come from me.
It's come from you, just so you know. Oh, what's her name? Can't think of her name. She's in the news at the moment.
J.K. Rowling.
J.K. Rowling.
Yeah.
But the Marauder's Map is a map of Hogwarts, and the person who is looking at it can see the little footprints with the name beside it of the different people. Walking around.
It's true, but I see them at this point in space and time. I see the human, not just the footprints.
Right.
But yeah, I suppose sort of like that, but bigger, more like I'm looking down from space, really.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah, no, I fully appreciate that, and
it's amazing because you can see them, but even though they're tiny point, I'm not planning to work out how I can do it. It's just a nice new thing I've observed. But
No, we're not going to receive an essay on it next month. Then.
Martin's got his hand up.
Martin's got his hand up. I think
Yeah, thanks. Just about a point made a moment ago about past lives. I've had a number of occasions when I've helped people who've gone into a trauma after they've died, when their spirit has learned of the reason for their death and the betrayal against them. And that has then set up a trauma, which was a post-death trauma that needed to be resolved. And on one occasion, this was just a pure energy, and I took the person into a regression, and we were just floating in energy clouds of color until I got her to bump into the bit that was the problem and ping it off, and all the problems were dissolved in a moment. But yeah, I just want to say there are things that go on between lives, not just in the past lives as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Martin, sorry,
Yeah.
have to ask, what colour was the problem?
I can't tell you now. It's about 10 years ago, and I really don't know. There'd be all sort of pale shades. There were no strong colours.
Yeah, no, that's what I work with all the time. So
yeah, but I can't remember now what it was.
No, okay.
Sorry.
Well, guys, it's almost 8:30 now, and we kind of run out of time. So I hope we've answered your questions, Barry.
That's very good. Thank you.
I look forward to hearing about it in a month's time. You know, how much money you've made.
Oh, we should all compete. There's gold in Wales, you know, somewhere.
Yes, yeah. But don't tell them that. We keep that for ourselves.
I will also say there's gold in Shropshire. Somebody locally has just found a huge nugget.
Yes, I heard. Yeah. Nugget. Yeah. But yes, next month it'll just be 2 days before the symposium, so we'll be getting ready for that, and so I look forward to seeing you all then. We do have some books for sale in the BSD shop from Adrian Nickeldon Weber, his house healing book, if you're interested in that. Anything else I can plug?